Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. So many of you are tuning in from all around, and I want to thank you so much for that. I've been traveling a lot of late, and I have bumped into many of you in the airports for telling me that you watch the show. Thank you so much for that. We try to give you the best information that we can from day to day to day to day. I want to talk to you about the dismantling of the Department of Education. It's one of our baby agencies next to the Department of Homeland Security. It's the baby of the agencies. And many people are saying that it has not had enough time to mature so that it can carry out its missions to take care of the most vulnerable children in our society. Among their missions, I mean, they have an Office of Civil Rights. They have an Institute of Education Sciences. I mean, they look at your federal student aid. I mean, there's just so much that this department oversees, and yet it's being dismantled. Not completely, but it is being gutted. So I want to know what your thoughts are about this. It has been said that the people who will be harmed the most are the most vulnerable. Hey, Hannah, how you doing, sweetie? Sending you so much love down there in South Carolina. What do you think about that? Do we need a Department of Education? It used to be embedded with health, education, and welfare. But President Jimmy Carter, said, no, I think they need their own department because they have their own set of issues. And remember this, everybody. We do not have a federally guaranteed right to an education. We're seeing that with this young lady who is suing the state of Connecticut because she is in college and because we're now in a technological age, she's been able to use all kinds of aids and she is functionally illiterate. Then we have students in Detroit who have sued the Detroit public school system because they too graduated at the tops of their high school classes, and then they got to college and found out that they were functionally illiterate. How does that happen? And will dismantling the Department of Education and leaving it to the states, will that help our students? President Trump has alleged that we are doing worse than any of the developed nations. That is not true. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, these countries put America, well, say in the top third, and sometimes in math we fall a little bit below. But the fact is, America's doing better than he says, but we could be doing even better than we're doing right now. How do we get there? How do we get there, everybody? What does this mean? What does this mean? I mean, 21 out of 36 nations, that's where we are in math. But we're fifth out of 41 nations when it comes to reading. 92% of Americans at least come out of high school. But we have so many barriers to get people into vocational school or into college, let alone graduate school. Let's talk about this. What will the dismantling of the Department of Education mean? When my brother, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., was in Congress, he and Frank Watkins, may he rest in peace, you remember him, Dr. Sonia Whitaker, they constructed an amendment to the Constitution, Attorney Darrell Jones and Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, that would guarantee equal access to equal high-quality education for every American. Equal access to equal high-quality education for every American. It sounds like the promise of Brown v. Board of Education. And yet, you have a book that asks a profound question that I know this young lady in Connecticut is asking. I know that these students in Detroit are asking. The kids in Baltimore, they're asking this. The kids in Chicago, the kids in Mississippi, the kids all over the country are asking. Is there anybody who can teach me how to read? Now, that is a heck of a question for a teacher, a deputy superintendent, and a superintendent of schools to ask. And you've been all of those. You've occupied all of those positions. But everybody is here today And of course, you're the national policy director for Push Excel. And so education policy director. So you occupy that. You educate people, but you also look at education policy and you want to perfect that. We've got Attorney Daryl Jones, uh, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, a brilliant lawyer in his own right. We're hearing that a lot of people are going to be suing because this department has been dismantled. We want to hear from you. And as a state legislator, in the most populous state for Black people, more Black people live in Texas than in any other state in the Union. And yet they have a very right wing governor. How is that going to work out for Black and brown children and poor white children? Because the untold story is that underneath it all, Dr. Whitaker, poor white children get hit too. The most vulnerable children get hit, they get hurt. I had a unique experience. You know, my brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, and I went to Whitney Young Magnet High School, which had an IEP section. And everyone, they were mainstreamed, as you know, Dr. Whitaker, into the classrooms. Children who had learning challenges and people who were hearing impaired. It was nothing to walk into your classroom, and this is 40 years ago, having a signer in the classroom. And really, that's the way education ought to be. It's the way it ought to be. But what's going to happen now? And of course, we have to tip our hat to Dr. Mary Frances Berry, just really one of the great unsung heroes of American history. Indeed, President Jimmy Carter tasked her with being the architect of the Department of Education. Who is Dr. Mary Frances Berry? Well, among many things, let's just go back to the fact that she is the first Black person in American history to be the head of a major white university, the University of Colorado at Denver. That is Condoleezza Rice's alma mater. It's one of those schools that's kind of way off the beaten path. That is also a school of tremendous excellence. So let me start with you. And of course, I remind people that Daryl Jones and Barbara Arnwine every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time are on WOL in DC. And so let's get started with you, Dr. Whitaker. The Department of Education, what does it do? What and how are you reacting um to the dismantling of it? I mean, what does that say to you as an educator, as a teacher, as someone who understands policy, who works in the policy space and with
I,
our children?
I think that the first thing that you said is, really resonates with all of us, and that is the children that will be hurt the most are our vulnerable children, Black
Mhm.
children, brown children, children experiencing the impact of poverty, which includes white children. In terms of its most significant um, benefit or role for public schools is the distribution of those federal funds. Right now, a greater majority of Black and brown students are in schools that are heavily funded by the Title I funds. And as you know, many of our nation's affluent school districts will rely on property taxes and can do so. But in school districts serving majority minority and school districts where a majority of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch, those schools, say officials like myself, from a budgetary perspective, cannot rely on our funding, our Illinois, for example, Illinois state funding formula that requires that we rely so heavily on a property taxes. We can't do that. It's not there. And so the distribution of the federal funds like Title One, Title Two, Title One, I should say, is the funding that allows us to provide our students with access to high quality professional development for their teachers that impacts their instruction. Title IV would be the funding that we use to provide training for the teachers. If those funds go away, then those schools are going to be heavily impacted. The potential, and we know that this is what is exactly what's going to getting ready to happen. I mentioned the term free and reduced lunch. And the fact that we do have schools in our nation where 90% of the students, if not more, qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so if we're not careful in terms of watching how those funds get distributed, that actually, and you know this, Santita, because we talk about it all the time, in our my systems, we've provided students breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Hmm.
And we would provide meals during the summer break. So when we have students that are qualifying for free and reduced lunch, if the funding is not there, there are children that won't eat
Anything.
at all.
That is unbelievable. And and I and children who need these individualized programs. I mean, because it's not that children cannot learn. You know that better than anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Some children need different, they need different different teaching styles. You might dyslexia or something
Mm-hmm.
might go undiagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
We already have classrooms that have too many students in them.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean,
And and
by removing the Department of Education, what's going to happen?
well, and I may, and thank you for that piece. What I want to add is when we first got word via Project 2025
Yeah.
that this was going to happen, and then now administration is in place and they're following their playbook line by line. The conversation that was being had across the nation again was about how it would how funding would be impacted. So what we're hearing now and this is just recent, and I think it's as a result of all of the backlash that current administration at the national level is getting around this topic. Right now, they're articulating that what will not be impacted, and again, this is recent, we're now told that Title I funding will not be impacted. We're also told that funding for our special education students, which is grossly underfunded, which is another topic already, is not going to be impacted. And we're also told that student loan repayment plans are not going to be impacted. But let me address the first two real quickly as a district level official, and that would be the special education funding and the Title I funding. Because although we're reading this, right? We're hearing this on the media.
Hmm.
As far as I am aware at the state level, we have not received anything in writing from administration at the federal level about how we are to distribute those funds. So, in other words, if the U.S. Department of Education is dismantled and we're told that it's a good thing because the money goes to the state and there is no plan at the state level because state level officials are hearing it at the same time we're hearing it in the media. There's no comprehensive plan of action at any state level for how those funds would then be distributed in a way that they've never had to do it before, if I'm making sense.
It was making sense to me, and let me move over to Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. And please, everybody, open up your mics and feel free to engage each other because different questions will arise. You are in a state where I don't know. I've seen Governor Abbott, and and there are other governors who are as conservative. He takes things away from people. It's not like he's trying to enhance education or figure out a way to. He says, okay, we've got a border problem, so he distributes poor people all across the country. It's like, wait, what are you doing? And I'm wondering if I can really trust him with and make this a state right. This is sounding very Civil War to me. States' rights. That sends a chill down my spine because Dr. Whitaker, Attorney Jones, we have always had to have federal oversight with the vote with everything. Representative Reynolds, what does this say to you? I mean, what would it look like in Texas?
Well, Santita, I'm so thankful that you're bringing this topic up for discussion so that we can educate people as we deal with this new normal of cutting vital services. And I agree with Dr. Whitaker and everything that she stated. And I'm so happy that we have Attorney Daryl Jones on because I think that ultimately this is going to fall within the courts to strike down as unconstitutional. So let me just say, what does it mean for the states? Sadly, our lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, was there at the White House today for that ceremonial S show. And I say that,
Yes.
because I'm very frustrated. This is going to certainly hurt the very students that Dr. Whitaker articulated, the most vulnerable, Black, brown, students with disabilities, students that are not proficient with English, what we call English as a second language. And it's going to hurt students with not just physical disabilities, but mental as well. There are many students that have ADHD and other behavioral issues that are going to be significantly impacted. But make no mistake, even though it will impact poor whites, it's going to have a disproportionate impact among Black and brown students. And they know this, and they don't care. As Dr. Whitaker was rightfully stated, this is out of the playbook of the Heritage Society and Project 2025. This is all by design to dismantle our public schools. President Trump had the Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, who had no business being the Education Secretary, but it all makes sense because her sole job, as he stated when he appointed her, was to make sure that she's the last Education Secretary, because her job is to eliminate the department. And for the states, for states like Texas, it's going to have a domino effect. As Dr. Whitaker was just explaining, right now in Texas, we're dealing with Governor Abbott trying to dismantle our public schools with this voucher scam to subsidize the wealthy sending their kids to private school on our public tax dollars. That is what they want to do. They want more tax breaks, more subsidies. And this whole notion of defunding the Department of Education is so that they can privatize public education, and they could do it for profit. They don't make the profits out of public schools. They want to make more profit. This is about corporate greed. And then they want to dismantle the what they call the bureaucracy so that they can give the billionaires and multimillionaires tax cuts and tax breaks. So let's not, mince what this is designed to do. They don't care about public education. They don't care about the vulnerable students that are going to be impacted. They don't care about larger class sizes. They don't care about students with disabilities, because whenever they have a student that is, and they're wealthy, they can have a one-on-one private tutor. They can have the best professionals. They don't need assistance of the federal government. But people in the inner cities and urban areas, even rural areas where they don't have any private schools, they are going to be, it is going to be an onslaught. And so this is a very dark day for our country. I think Nelson Mandela was right when he said that education is the most powerful weapon that we can use to change the world. And this is taking us back. This is going to create more disparities between education advancement. This is going to make potentially college less affordable. There's so many ramifications for this, Santita, that we haven't even been able to digest yet. But certainly there's no net positives. So how can you make education better? Trump said that we need to dismantle it because we are, as you said earlier, Santita, he's trying to say we're the worst outcome in the world, which is false. He's always lying. No one really fact checks him, but this is all a part of his talking points so that he can push his Project 2025 agenda. And then I want to say this final thing. This other part about the Department of Education, they said, oh, they're just promoting DEI. They're just promoting, indoctrinating these students with this and that. So this is all a part of this right-wing conspiracy. And sadly, our students are going to suffer. And so it's important that we speak truth to power, that we push back on this disinformation and misinformation. And I hope that these lawsuits and our Democrats in Congress will have a backbone and fight like hell to save our future for our students and many of those vulnerable populations that are going to be tremendously harmed by this. We'll likely see more dropouts. We'll see free and reduced lunch. Title I students go to school hungry. I think that there'll be more dismantling of Head Start programs, which he tried to do that already. So I don't buy this notion that they're going to carve out some exceptions for disabilities. This is a first phase. And once you start it, you can't really stop it. So we have to fight it and stop it, right now.
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. I mean, because let me first ask you and then pivot to you, Attorney Darrell Jones. Many people look at Brown v. Board of Education as, a social decision. This was Dr. Whitaker, an opportunity for Black kids and white kids to sit next to each other. Oh, no. This was an economic decision. Our tax dollars, Black folks were paying the same amount of taxes, but we were under-resourced. We didn't get the new books. We didn't get the new supplies. We didn't get the new buildings. So it was as much an economic decision as it was anything. Dr. Whitaker, before we go to you, Darrell Jones, because I'm just wondering how we can proceed with lawsuits. When we do not even have we do not have a constitutionally protected right to be educated. So before I go to you, Attorney Jones, Dr. Whitaker, Brown v. Board of Education, it was economic. We had not we, but, our parents had out-of-date books. Now, somehow or another, because of segregation, you had we had people like you in the classroom. Really, which really kind of, it advanced our parents because they had the best and the brightest and the most prepared. People who would be teaching at the university level, at the top universities, were teaching in our grammar and our high schools. That ain't a bad thing. What is bad is that our tax dollars, that we were underfunded and under-resourced. But what about that? The economic ramifications, Dr. Whitaker?
Say that again.
The economic ramifications. People, I think, have a misreading of the Brown v. Board of Education decision. And please.
I would have a tendency to agree with that. And then I'm also thinking about the economics as it relates to what we know today. And what we know today is that our schools are as segregated, if not more segregated today than they were then. And even in school districts serving majority Caucasian students, we still see a form of de facto segregation in those systems where majority schools serving white students in one district are on one side of town with a teacher with a different level of background and experience versus in a school district where in that same system, you may have a school where the majority of the students, again, qualify for free and reduced lunch. With regards to economics, how that is playing out today in the manner in which I have just described is we see inequities in how the funds are distributed, sometimes even within similar school districts, and most certainly across state to state, county to county, region to region. And so the outcome of even that decision has not been beneficial from an economic perspective, because somehow, some way, the powers that be have found out a way to take the funding and ensure that it was distributed unequitably, which is another issue that I have with there being no oversight, even at the state level, for how these funds are distributed.
That is okay, which takes it to you, Attorney Darrell Jones, Chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition.
Well, Santita, Dr. Whitaker and Representative Reynolds could not have laid the case any better. Let me, and Representative Reynolds brought it to you from the state perspective. For just a moment, I just want to back up. I want to bring it to you from the local government perspective. When I was a county councilman, one of the elementary schools that was in my district was 100% farm, right? Free and reduced meals, 100% Title I. This school that was 100% Title I, meaning a very poor school served very poor parents. It had no, it didn't have air conditioning. It didn't have any of the things that you would think other schools should have. It didn't have the technology. It didn't have the computers. None of this stuff. The other schools that had money all had them, but the poorer school did not. And so one of the things that they just by my being the representative, I went and fought for them to have their school remodeled, to be able to have updated computers and all this stuff, so that they have an equal opportunity to achieve with any other kid. So I use that as the perspective, the backdrop, to say what the Department of Education federally is intended to do was to be certain that the ground was even, that the surface was even, so that those students that didn't have the best opportunities were given some sources to have an opportunity. And whether it was because of their economics or because of their physical disability, whether it was because they were minority, or actually at the founding of the department because they were women, right? Whatever it was that was stopping and making it more difficult, the hurdle for those children to be able to have access to the funds, to be able to learn, that's what the Department of Education was set up to do. Now, what we see happening here with this administration is really interesting. And let's understand this. The Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education, of the 15 departments that are under the president, they are the smallest. That is the smallest in terms of staffing of all of the departments that are there. So if you're looking to cut money, you shouldn't be looking at the Department of Education, because that's the smallest staff. But when we go beyond that, it just becomes frustrating, because I know that Randy Weingarten with the AFT has already filed a suit in this matter to challenge the executive order that's there and what they're trying to do, because what they're going after are those lower income folks, thinking that there's not going to be any pushback from them. That's the lowest hanging fruit, to go and pick it because it's going to be easy. They're not going to be fighting us back. And what they're seeing now, what's happening now, and what must continue to happen, is that the people have got to continue to galvanize, to come together to fight. Because as Dr. Whitaker was saying, they may come for the disabled students right now, but they're coming up for every other student, every opportunity they get. Their ultimate goal is to get rid of the Department of Education. That's the ultimate goal. And by doing that and pushing it to the states, you'll have states like Louisiana, right? The poor states in the union, Mississippi, the poor states in the union that are dependent upon California and some of the other states to be able to get their money, to be able to provide that education. If they don't have the money, what happens? Who do you stop giving money to if you're on the state level and money's flowing in? Number one, you're going to focus on, and as you know so well, Santita, politics is about self-survival, right? So you're going to focus on the folks that are going to vote for you. And if your votes are coming from the heavy money districts, if your campaign coffers are filled from those heavy money districts, those are going to be the people that you cater to. That's what's going to happen. So the suits that are being filed now by AFT, and I'm sure that Becky Pringle and the National Education Association, they're going to be on top of it as well. They're all really focused on those issues of dealing with the minority students, and the educational opportunities, the English as second language opportunities that are there as well, because these are the ones that are going to be immediately challenged by what's going on. And I want to make one other point. When we talk about getting rid of the Department of Education, let's understand that the Department of Education was created legislatively by Congress, and only Congress can get rid of it. But what the president has the authority to do is to not fund it fully. Although the funds are there, that's going to be one of the legal fights. Although Congress puts the funds there, does the president have to take that money and use it in the Department of Education? Can he just let it sit? And that's going to be one of the fights that's going to be going on in the courthouse, because what he's trying to do is go around the spirit of what Congress has done when it funds the Department of Education, but not allowing those funds to flow out and to carry out the purpose for which they've been passed.
Well, how are they allowing this? Only Congress can give us a department of anything. So I need you to explain to
Right.
me how it is that Doge is allowed to go forward. They should not even exist. They technically do not exist.
Yeah.
They're not a department. It's a misnomer. They're not a department of
Mhm.
government efficiency. They are just cutting. Now they're not cutting Elon Musk's contracts.
No.
You know, and now there's a report that shows that Starlink is the system that is used for the internet at the White House. Help me, Daryl. That seems like an absolute conflict of interest.
Oh, without question, it's yeah. I mean, without question, it's a conflict of interest. The question is, who's going to step up and address the conflict of interest? You know, one thing this administration has shown is that they're not afraid to push the envelope. They're not afraid to go over the line. They're not afraid to buck the system. They're not afraid to go against judges' orders. They're not afraid of any of that. Their challenge to everyone else is, what are you going to do about it?
That's
This
right.
is what we're going to. What are you going to do about it? We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing. And that's what the authoritarian government does. It just keeps pushing until someone can push back. And that's where the people come in with regards to pushing back. And we've got to be certain our elected officials push back. It's upsetting that Congress isn't pushing back on this president. The folks that elected, that's the reason. And let me slow down. Let me slow down.
No,
We have
you're as
all
upset
these
as everybody
people
is.
that have
You
elected
sounded like you're at one of these town hall meetings. You sure?
And that's where I was going. That's precisely where I was going, because you have all these folks at the Republican town hall meetings telling their members of Congress, "I didn't elect you to simply roll over. I elected you to stand up. I need you to stand up and fight for my right. I need you
Daryl,
to stand up
wait.
and fight for my children."
Congressman Glenn Ivey, who is a Democrat, they just got on him. Dr. Whitaker, fine man. Black congressman out of Maryland. The
Mm-hmm.
Democrats in his district came after him at the town hall meeting, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. They said, wait. You can't just roll over. What are you all doing? Because to me, legislatively, you've got to, oh, Tracy, I didn't block you on Facebook. I don't block anyone because I'm not over there. I'm not over there that much. So bless your heart. You can reach me wherever you want to reach me, because I don't block people. It's a waste of time, you know. And like I've said to you, Tracy, if you want to talk to me, I'm here. That's what I'm here for. I'm good for it. I'm good for it. You know, I mean, the thing is, put people on record. Daryl, Representative
That's
Reynolds,
it.
make them vote and tell us where they are. You've been an elected official. You are an elected official, Representative Reynolds.
You know,
Vote.
you're absolutely right, and I appreciate, you know, my good friend and one of my great mentors, Congressman Al Green, for being a part of the resistance, for being willing to stand up. And Daryl, I did give him your message. I told him that, and he was very excited. Your frat brother was. I remember we were all together.
Wait a minute, that was an alpha who did that?
Yeah. That was an alpha man that did that. You know, he was making good trouble.
I mean, wait a minute. The
Yeah,
conservative,
yeah.
wonderful alphas, what? But then
Yeah,
Dr. King was an alpha. So what?
but that's what people demand right now. When we were all there for the 60th anniversary, the commemoration of Bloody Sunday. They expect good trouble. They don't expect us to just to roll over and say, okay, well, I guess they in control, so I guess they can do it. No, they expect some fight. They expect the resistance, not just, well, I guess they will just fight it in court. You got to fight it in the legislature. You fight it in the court. You fight it in the streets, not violently, but with protests. You fight it every single where. I'm happy that they're making it unpleasant for Elon Musk and Tesla, right? Because people are showing with their pocketbooks, it is hurting their stock to no end. So we have to continue to hit Trump and these MAGA Republicans where it hurts all around. We cannot let them have any daylight. And they're going to, if we don't, they're going to continue to stuff this stuff down our throat. So yes, Democrats, we're not giving you a pass because you're a Democrat and we're in a minority. People will elect us to advocate and to fight, not to sit on the sidelines and complain and say, well, I guess, we'll see what the courts do. That's not the answer. And Santita, another thing I was going to say, why they want to dismantle this and leave it to the states, because they don't want federal oversight. So when you talk about states' rights, I mean, imagine when you say states' rights when it comes to voter suppression, right?
Yeah.
That's why they don't want the John Lewis Voting Rights, the Freedom to Vote Act. They don't want the reauthorization because they don't want federal oversight. They want these states to be able to pass racially discriminatory gerrymandered maps and redistricting. They want to be able to pass more restrictions on voter access. They want to be able to do things like this, eliminating departments of education, even though it's unconstitutional for them to basically eliminate it. They will do it. And Trump is saying, hey, I dare you to fight me. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So we got to fight. He's a bully. He's a bully with the bully pulpit.
Absolutely.
And it's on us to say, hey, we're not afraid of you. You may be Goliath, but we know what David was able to do. That's the kind of fight that we need from our elected officials. And I'll tell you what, people are very frustrated right now. I see the recent poll, Santita, 27% with one poll, NBC did, 29% at another poll the CNN did, in terms of Democrats' dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party. They're dissatisfied overwhelmingly with Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and his capitulation to Trump on basically allowing him to cut Medicare and Medicaid and other programs that are going to disproportionately hurt Black and vulnerable communities. They're disgusted with those Democrats in the House that voted to censure Al Green for standing up. So a lot of people are paying attention, and they're very frustrated with our so-called leaders in Congress. And so, yeah, they need to keep showing up at these town halls, expressing their outrage and holding us accountable when we hold public trust.
Well, let me just say, Tracy, I didn't block you on Facebook. Let me just reiterate that. You said I blocked you on Facebook, but I told you that Trump was a racist and wants to be a dictator. Look, let me tell you something. I don't care about someone being a racist. I really don't. I don't care what you feel. I care what you do. The culture is racist. The society is racist. It's something we've had to fight that. What I need you to do is, despite your racism, to do the right thing. I am not waiting. The thing is, it's when you treat me in a way that dismisses me racially, that's when I got a problem with you. Jimmy Carter is one of the most decent men we've ever known in public life. Talked about racial purity. Remember that when he ran for president? I mean, someone who ran an aggressively racist campaign was Bill Clinton. He did that. He even came to the Rainbow Convention and insulted us. That was a Sister Soldier thing, because he was trying to let white folks know that he was going to put Jesse Jackson in check. And you've had Black elected officials who say things that appeal to white folks. Or should I say, to the lesser angels of white people, because all white people don't feel this way, or they fight it. Like some Black people have to fight feeling inferior. So let's get over that. Want to be a dictator? We have been on a slippery slope on presidential power since the beginning. In the beginning, George Washington had to resist being called a king. We had just fought a king, and then some of the founding fathers wanted him to be a king. He said, no, we're not going to do that. We just left that. So there is a resistance to monarchy. But now we've traded monarchy for oligarchy. So what are we talking about here? So my sister, I hear you, but I don't care what you feel. I care what you do. Want to be a dictator? And I tell you what, if the Democrats won't fight him, they're just as bad. So I'm not giving anybody a pass. But I've said to you, I've never said that he wasn't racist, but so is Joe Biden. We have Clarence Thomas because of Joe Biden. He buried Anita Hill, insulted this woman. She didn't even accept his apology. He treated her so horribly. Shame on all of that. And later for all of that. I'm done with that. Now my question is, let's talk about this. Later for that, what are we going to do about saving our children? That's what I want to know. How do you teach a hungry child, Dr. Whitaker?
Well,
How do you do that?
I'm going to say, can I go to the first part of that? What are we going to do about it? Is I think we start this conversation. We've talked about town halls. From an education perspective, I'd like to see the focus be at least some focus specifically on educating the parents about what it means, not only at the state level, but to their child's school and to go further down their child's classroom.
Mm.
What, because we can't get enough people to advocate and push right now. We have to make sure that at every level people are fighting the good fight. And
Mhm.
I just believe that the best way to do that, at the risk of being redundant, is making sure that before they are impacted, in this case parents, community members, the ultimate stakeholders, the parents, know what this will look like, feel like, smell like, and taste like, from a policy perspective, that will then impact the practices at their child's schools and classrooms. And the minute that we began to do an even more effective job of educating them, I think that they're more likely to fight and advocate a bit harder. Because, with all due respect to everyone involved in the last election, Santita, we've heard it at Rainbow Push. How many times have people said they missed us? We don't know, them being the vulnerable. We don't know that those that have advocated and fight for us really understand that we're really just trying to eat, or really understand from a policy perspective. They don't always see that we understand, say, at a policy level, in terms of putting forth policies and advocating. And so I think that we have to be careful to make sure that we connect those of us that are advocating and have the power at the state and the federal level to the folks that we're trying to get fed. And that at the same time, again, in summarizing, that we do an even better job of educating them about what it means when the U.S. Department of Education is dismantled to their school, district, and community.
No, but I think that you're right. I mean, because the messaging was so. Look, I was talking to some young people, some kids who were just out of college earlier today, and they said, "Are you kidding me? You missed me on Democrats missed me on messaging. I'm watching people who are struggling to buy groceries." And they kept saying that everything's fine. But really, and they did it, Representative Reynolds, because you were having to talk to people, because you were campaigning at the same time. You were trying to get people registered to vote, Daryl. And they kept saying, Dr. Whitaker, they kept saying, oh, well, no, really, if you look at the data, well, I'm looking at my card was just declined in the grocery store.
That part.
That part.
Sorry.
Okay.
That part.
Yeah. No. Come on now.
Right.
So, I mean, and I'm buying the same groceries. Actually, I put some
Yeah.
things back. So, I mean, so wait a minute. So I'm just saying things are off here. And I don't even think we understand what states' rights mean. The Civil War. Come on, Representative Reynolds. I saw you purse your lips. States' rights, and all y'all can. I didn't say all of you. I said all y'all can weigh in on states' rights. That's important, particularly the great state of Texas, who let me languish in slavery for how much longer before you let me know that I was free? Oh my God.
And Santita, that is the danger when you have these recalcitrant extremist governors like Governor Abbott in Texas, Governor DeSantis in Florida, to name a few, that were the first ones to make the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and this quote woke agenda by ending African American studies and going after African American everything, culture, and trying to mislabel African Americans who were competent, capable, and qualified as DEI hires. Everything, if you're in a position of any significance, then you got there because you were Black, because of a quota, because of DEI, not because you definitely earned it, which they most times denied they did. So we've had, if you leave it up to states' rights and no oversight, then you're going to find ourselves potentially, and this is no stretch of the imagination based on the way things are happening, potentially where you have separate facilities again. That is how outrageous we're getting with this stuff that they're doing. I mean, I've seen rollbacks on so many things that we thought were protected. And don't think that's a stretch, because who thought that there would ever be anything other than Roe versus Wade? Who ever thought that a woman's right to choose was in jeopardy in 2024? No one did. That was back from 1973, right? So we are seeing unprecedented times. Who thought that the president would be, the Supreme Court would basically give him king status, that he couldn't be charged with a crime while official acts in office? No one thought that was going to happen. So
no. Wait a minute, Ron. We didn't think so.
Well,
they thought so, and they kept on going. They thought they could overturn Roe v. Wade, and they started doing it 50 years ago.
Well, shame on the Democrats for not enshrining it when they had a super majority in the House and the Senate. When they had the trifecta, shame on them for not doing that, for not protecting a woman's right to choose, not protecting voting rights. I'm not giving President Obama a pass or President Biden a pass, because when you have one thing I can say about President Trump, although I disagree with his policies, he is doing what he campaigned on. He's doing what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it by hook or crook. One of the reasons why there's more apathy with the Democrats is because people are sick and tired. They said they were going to pass the George Floyd Policing Act. Never happened. Voting rights. Never happened. Increasing the minimum wage. Never happened. Protecting a woman's right to choose. Never happened.
Wait a minute. And hold on. You're a legislator. You know, with all of the executive orders that this man has written, Biden could have done the same thing.
He sure could have. He could have done the same thing and
Wait a
pushed
minute.
the wheel.
And Obama could have done it, and then he could have passed it off.
Yeah.
And then just when Biden comes in, okay, I'm gonna sign another executive order, another set of them. He could have done that.
And here we find ourselves. So that's why I see so much frustration when I talk to people and try to say why they should vote. And then they say, well, what did y'all do when you had the power? And I mean, it puts me in a position where I have to defend the sometimes indefensible and say, well, just give us another chance, or we have to get someone else. But right now we're in a crisis. We're in a crisis with our public education. I can tell you right now that the design is to dismantle it. I see it right now with this push for vouchers. And when you leave it to the states, that's what's going to happen. The rich are going to get tax breaks to send their kids to private schools. The public schools, where most of our kids, the private schools don't have to accept children. They can discriminate. They can say, no, they can't come to our school legally. They can say that. There's an entrance exam. Then you get a voucher. The private school costs $20,000, $30,000. The voucher covers $10,000. The private, the poor or middle class person can't still afford the additional $20,000 to supplement whatever the voucher's giving them. So it only helps the rich and the well-off. So people need to wake the hell up, Santita. And it's frustrating, but right now we're fighting right now in Texas to get vouchers from being implemented in our state.
Well, if I might add too, the other thing that doesn't happen with regards to private school versus traditional public schools is that those schools are not held to the same standards as it relates to producing student results. And so they get to pick what students can come, not come. And then that's why I reject this term failing schools, just so you know, because school, what does it mean a failing school? The building doesn't fail the students. Many of our students in many of the districts where a greater majority of the students are struggling to eat a meal, they come to school. I've had kindergarten students who, when I was working, and Santita will tell you, I've been an official in high-performing school districts serving majority affluent white students, and this is not stereotypical, this is fact. The majority of the kindergarten students came to school reading already. And then I've served as an official in school districts where majority of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch. I am not comfortable saying this, but I will tell you, I had kindergarten students whose name only had 3 letters in them, and they could not recognize those 3 letters when my teachers put them in front of them. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I observed, right? So when you siphon off who can go to what school, and then you say that my school or my district is a failing school district because I didn't get to pick and choose. Look at me, Attorney Darrell, you got me going now. When I, in terms of being all spirited, when I don't get to pick and choose what school, what students come to my school, I just love them, right? And my teachers advocate for them and do the best they can in providing high quality instruction. But then they look on the news that the school or the district is labeled failing. And when they didn't have to pick and choose, or they pick and choose students who are already affluent, students who are already literate, those schools get no label at all.
That's right.
That's a problem. So I reject that. I reject that.
And I just want to add real quick on top of that, Dr. Whitaker, these schools, private schools, don't usually accept students with disabilities. They usually don't. Not only that, they don't have provide free and reduced lunches. That's another thing. They don't provide transportation. So there's no bus that goes there. So there are so many impediments that would preclude children from lower socioeconomic backgrounds from attending those schools. They don't have students with that English as a second language. They don't have students that don't come on reading level. They usually have an entrance exam. And if those students can't pass that, they can't get in. So they only accept it, as Dr. Whitaker said, the cream of the crop anyway. They don't have to have the same teachers with certifications. They don't have to have, they don't have to pass those inter-course exams. And so there's so many different things that Dr. Whitaker just articulated, that our neighborhood public schools, so many hurdles. These teachers have to teach to the test. These teachers have to usually come out of their pockets to help those students. Mm-hmm. They don't have school supplies. So we're only going to exacerbate that with this abolishing of the Department of Education.
And so if you say, if I might add back, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dr.
No,
Whitaker.
I'm good.
Dr. Whitaker, I don't want you to forget
Santita,
that.
I think that one.
Mm-hmm. No, go on, Daryl.
And one of the things I wanted to add to what we're discussing, Santita, when we're talking about the free, you heard me use the phrase farm, F-A-R-M, free and reduced meal. And I use that phrase because, while we're talking about free and reduced lunches, we also have schools that are serving breakfast before school begins because the kids don't have access to food, and so that provides them with the access to that food. All of that becomes in jeopardy when you start talking about dismantling the Department of Education. I wanted to also add this because it's important that that listeners know what they can do, and what can be done. That we're not just talking eye in the pie theory and stuff like that. When it came to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 being passed, it wasn't just something that was up to Congress to make the decision. That they just didn't one day say, okay, enough, we think this should be equal, we should pass this act. It was the people on the ground that were pushing forward saying, we're demanding that this be done. When it comes to many of the things in the court, people often think, oh, well, the court finally became enlightened. No, the court didn't become enlightened. Oh. The people were pushing, and the court then took notice of where the people are to adjust its position. So I tee that up to say, we've got to be certain that those that are speaking in our favor, those that are speaking in a way that we want them to move, that we want the country to move the way we want the courts to move, we've got to be certain that we're supporting them. So, with Congressman Al Green, I use him all the time as an example. I tell everyone to call his office. What is it? 202-225-7508. Mm-hmm. And thank him. Thank him for raising that cane, because we need to be raising cane wherever we are. If we're in the streets, we need to raise cane. We've got to stand up and object and be heard that we are not in agreement with what's occurring. If we do not stand up and voice our displeasure with what we're seeing, then the courts are going to do what the courts want to do. The elected officials are going to do what the elected officials want to do. They've got to hear from the people. They've got to feel that pressure. And once they feel that pressure, that's when things will start changing. That's when they'll make decisions that are in society's best interest and not the oligarchy's best interest. That's the push that I certainly want people to be aware of, Santita.
And they need to make these legislators go on the record, Dr. Whitaker.
Absolutely.
See, the thing is, okay, so you go down fighting. I mean, that's, That's it. Reverend didn't lose when he ran for president. He won. You don't even remember Dukakis. You don't even remember Mondale.
Mm-hmm.
What you remember is this man who heroically just, even when it was clear he almost became the nominee in 88, finished a top tier candidate in 84. No one expected him to even finish. He finishes in the top 3 out of 7 or 8 candidates. And then 4 years later, almost becomes a nominee. And then when they took a turn on him, he said, okay, we're going to keep hope alive. We're going to keep on pushing. That's what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, all this, well, they're gonna win anywhere. No, then if that's how you feel, then you don't need to be in elective office.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you there. I don't want to vote by acclamation. I want you to have everybody go on record and let me know how you feel about education, how you feel about health care, how you feel about Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid. I want you to go on the record. I want you to let me know that you do not believe that Congress is supposed to do its job.
Right.
Nobody's going to confront the president about putting Elon Musk in charge of. This is not even a constitutionally mandated department. It's not a real thing. But what he's doing is a real thing. They are gutting the Department of Education. They're gutting Social Security. They're asking people who are our elders, who are struggling physically, people who are sick. You go to an office that they have closed and let us know that you're living. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
This is so cruel. I only have a couple of minutes, literally 2, before we go. And I'm gonna let you close this out, Dr. Whitaker. Daryl Jones, 1 minute for you, and just, oh my gosh, every Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on WOL in DC. You've got to hear this wonderful radio show with him and Attorney Barbara Arnwine, bringing the greatest issues of the day to you. Attorney Daryl Jones.
Thank you so much, Santita. And, I just want to certainly implore and encourage everyone to get involved. Whatever level, wherever you are, get involved, get into the fray. You cannot stand on the sidewalks and watch what's happening in the street when your rights and your children's rights are being taken away and are at bay. Everyone will be impacted by it. You've got to get off the sidewalk, get into the street, and get involved. That's my big message, Santita.
Dr. Sonia Whitaker, is there anybody who can teach me how to read? Everybody get that book, because there are some bodies there. There are some people, and she is one of these persons. We need you to head up the Department of Education. That's right. When we get it reinstated, Dr. Whitaker, I said it. You don't have to. You're closing.
I second.
My closing thoughts are to stay informed. I know we can get fatigued watching the news, reading the news, the paper, and all of the information that's coming out about what is happening that is not in our best interest. I say take a break for a few minutes, maybe even a few hours, but stay informed. And then in closing, for me, if we're not going to fight for ourselves, we have got to do it for the children. I have the great honor of seeing my niece and nephew who are now in high school. My kids are grown, but I look at my niece and nephew and I say, somebody, when they finish high school and move on, somebody has got to have a great nation for them to live in. So I will tell you that I have a renewed sense of fight in me as I look at them even more often these days.
Well, that's important. And,
Yeah.
I hope this will push people to get involved in these organizations. Daryl Jones just said it. Get off the sidewalk. Come out of your homes while you still have them and get involved. I hope you'll meet us at Rainbow Push on Saturday. You can catch us on the Word Network. On television, you can catch us on rainbowpush.org. You can catch us on Reverend Jackson's page. I'm going to start streaming the Rainbow Push meeting on my page. We're going to have Pastor Jamal Bryant first weekend in April. But the push is on. There is work for all of us to do. Let us come together and save education, save the country. It's ours. It's ours. It's ours to save. God bless you, everybody. Have a great night. And I'll see you Sunday on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on the iHeart Network. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.